Hello and welcome to Diary of a Trader. Today's video we're going to be going over the lunar cycles of Apogee and Perigee. And you've probably not heard these phrases used in trading a lot, but they are extremely important and effective in utilizing the other tools that we've discussed with financial astrology. And again, financial astrology is the mathematical psychology based on astronomy. So it is a behavioral science. It's generally called the third type of market analysis. You have fundamental, technical, and then financial astrology. And financial astrology is important because it is entirely based on its entire purpose is to forecast as opposed to interpret past behavior. It is entirely based on forecasting. Anyways, we've gone over planetary sign changes. We've gone over the moon phases of new moons and full moons. We've gone over synodic or planetary lines, and we've gone over eclipses. And today we're going to go over another part of our moon phases, and that's going to be the apogee and perigee. And if we go to our tools here, and we go to, sometimes it's easier just to type this in. There we go. And it'll put these on our chart. Now, if you don't know what apogee and perigee is, we have its moon and its orbit around the Earth's elliptical. The point where the orbit is closest to Earth is called perigee, and the point where it's farthest away from Earth is known as apogee. And that can play a big role in how markets move, okay? And it's especially important to recognize not only where these apogees and perigees form, but what moon phase is going on during that cycle, if there is. So we can see here that this is a apogee. We can maybe make these a little bit bigger. So big Q means apogee, which means that it is the closest to the Earth, and then the small q is perigee, which means it's closest is perigee, farthest is apogee. So this is perigee, apogee, and so forth. And really what we're looking for is this is generally not enough to try to use in our trading, because they do show up quite a bit. All right, we're looking at a daily chart. We can see that these do show up quite often. What we need to do is we also need to add the lunar phases, moon phases, and I want to make sure we're only using the full moon and the new moon. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for areas where we have the new moon and a full moon show up near or at a zone where you have a market high or a swing low. So if I'm moving forward here, right here, we would know that this was probably a good zone to look at. We know that full moons in the euro dollar mean that we have a high chance of prices moving higher. So if we knew we were at a swing low in our oscillators, we saw that there was a perigee, which means that the Earth is the closest to Earth, or that the moon is the closest to Earth. And then just a few days after that, we have a full moon. That's a pretty good indication that we'll have some change in trend. All right. Likewise, when we see this here, we can see that there are generally big moves that happen on the days where you have an apogee or perigee show up during a moon phase. Here we had a rise in prices, downward move in prices. If we're looking at our oscillators as we're doing this, elevated levels in the oscillators, we have an apogee, perigee, along with a full moon. Typically full moons mean that we move higher, but if we look at if we look at the conditions in our two oscillators down here, we know that the odds of going higher are pretty limited. And we should just treat that full moon then as kind of a trigger warning for saying that prices are going, that there's a short-term trend change. You can see here at this swing high up here, right before the market turned, we had a perigee along with a new moon phase or a full moon phase, and that resulted in a market bottoming. We had a rise in prices here. Then we had another confluence of perigee and a moon phase, and that prices traded down. So we can see very often that when we get into conditions where we see the moon phases appear, we see that there are frequently big changes in price in the short term and the long term. And that these do appear very, they show up consistently enough to form a trade plan off of it. And it's a pretty amazing form and style of looking at how to trade these markets. Right here we had a new moon, and we were at perigee, and we had a sell-off. And if we go back to our most current price action, let's look at what we've got going on in the euro most recently. The closest areas that we had a within a couple days was back on the 18th of May and the 16th of May, 15th and 18th of May, where we had a new moon phase along with a perigee. And then even back farther, right when we were near a important resistance zone, we had a new moon phase and perigee, and we had significant selling pressure. All right. And so where do we see this kind of activity again? Right here. We're looking at June 13th. What also happened on June 13th? We looked at this on another video. Kind of a big deal. We have some huge confluence zones here. We have an eclipse. We have a... I don't know if that's coincidence, but Friday the 13th. We have the moon in perigee. We have a full moon. A new moon means no moon. And we have an eclipse. And if you remember our series on the eclipse, we said that whatever the prevailing trend is going up to this date, that we would see some type of market change. That happens actually twice. It happens in middle of July and then again in the middle of August, where we have two eclipses, right? The exact same things. We have the exact same type of astronomical event happening. So this is a very interesting and powerful way to look at a market. We can look ahead, and these are natural moving cycles. These are not these are static time cycles. These are not dynamic. We cannot change these. These are just set in nature. And we can see that price and humans do respond to this kind of behavior. I'd like to see real quick if we can find another eclipse that showed up with the new moon phase and an apogee perigee. Make those eclipses bigger so I can see. Okay, we did have one, not the same day, but we did have a general rise in prices that time. No perigee there though. None there. I need to make this a different color because it's kind of hard to see. Okay, right here we did. That was a market top, and we had a very big drop there a couple days after. Right here, Not exactly the same day, but yes, there are right here. Oh, this is a good one. Exact same day we had a trifecta. We have a new moon, eclipse. I suppose that this is this is always the case, but then we have an apogee perigee cycle on that date, and look what happened to prices. They went up significantly. So as we're looking at this, we see that it is pretty rare, at least over the last 10 years, to have a condition where you are going to see a eclipse in the moon phase and a apogee perigee all together. But when they do, there are some pretty significant drives in price when they show up together. Yeah, that is a pretty powerful signal that we see when we're looking at all of these types of signals and these cycles. It's a very, very interesting look at how to forecast and analyze our markets. And so again, as we're looking forward in time, middle of July and the middle of August are when we get kind of a rare occurrence of an apogee, perigee, moon phase, and eclipse all at the same time. It's a very, very interesting setup we have going here. All right. Hope you guys found this video interesting, and I looking forward to talk to you in our next video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.